I made this video just 2 weeks ago, and it was already bad. When the rumored August pricing increases hit GPUs, things were not looking good. But I tracked the lowest available price for each GPU in the United States, and that had some stock still available at better pricing. However, I was making a video just 2 days ago pricing out an RTX 5070 build, and I was shocked to see that the lowest price 5070 in the United States had already hit $800. Notice this is a 9070 GRE. I'm using PC Part Picker to search a bunch of major retailers priced low to high so we can find the lowest price in stock at a major retailer in the United States. It's currently $800. So I have a table going where we can track this. Now, I'm not the best at Google Sheets, but I'll give you an idea of how this is going to work. So I have the MSRP column by GPU. I have the price on July 3rd, at which point I did a video checking the lowest prices available in the United States on each GPU. And then I made the August 8th video showing the prices at that time. Now it's August 22nd at the time of filming, and if I type in $800 here for the 5070, notice that some calculations auto-populate. Now, the calculations you see for the ones where I haven't typed in the August 22nd column yet don't actually make sense. I'm not the greatest with Google Sheets, so just bear with me. It'll all make sense once it's all typed in. So that's a $200 increase since July 3rd, which means it's 133% of its price on July 3rd, so a 33% increase. It's a $170 increase since the August 8th video just 2 weeks ago, which is a 27% increase. I've also tracked it versus MSRP. We're now $251 over the $549 MSRP, which means that the 5070 is now 46% above its MSRP at the lowest price available in the United States right now. Now, we're going to track this for all AMD and Nvidia GPUs at current pricing and find out just how bad has it gotten. People often ask me what is worth upgrading on their PC since RAM and GPU prices are so expensive right now, and there's an easy answer. Upgrading your monitor can make literally everything you do or see on your PC better, and the monitor space has been incredibly exciting lately, with high-end specs and features that used to cost thousands just a few years ago, now available at extremely affordable pricing. KTC is leading that charge with their mission of offering monitors with better specs than competitors at the same price or the same specs at a better price. Either way, the consumer wins, and a huge thanks to KTC for sponsoring this part of today's video. While my previous KTC monitor showcases have focused on large monitors with high resolutions and mini LED technology for amazing HDR experiences in AAA games at incredible prices, and definitely still check those out for those interested, today I want to focus on the competitive gamers in my audience. If most of your gaming focuses on competitive multiplayer, then the gold standard is a 24.5-inch 1080p monitor with blistering refresh rates, and the KTC 25M2 Pro has all the features you need. This can hit 400 Hz with an OC, 360 Hz out of the box, and it does it with a beautiful AUO fast IPS panel rather than a washed out TN panel that you see from competitors. With 99% sRGB coverage and factory calibration to a Delta E less than 2, everything looks great, while the 5-level DAC dynamic clarity technology and 100-step stepless OD adjustment optimize motion definition in real time, balancing ghosting and overshoot under different environments, keeping high frame rate images clear and sharp for amazing tracking performance while aiming. And when you are on an all-day grind of the competitive ladder, you can enable the hardware-level low blue light and DC flicker-free technology to reduce eye fatigue without distorting game colors. The stand supports height, tilt, horizontal, and vertical rotation in all directions. The matched light hood adopts a flocked lining to reduce stray light and diffuse reflection, while the hidden headphone hanger helps keep your desktop organized. Built-in precision angle markings allow you to dial in your custom gaming setup with absolute accuracy, helping you lock into the perfect position every time. The connectivity options are also impressive. Dual HDMI ports support up to 1080p at 240 Hz, while two DP 1.4 ports can push the display to its maximum 1080p at 400 Hz limit. You can connect multiple devices without sacrificing high refresh rate performance. The value on offer here is almost hard to believe, but there is really no catch. Sitting around $250 right now, this monitor undercuts much of the competition while delivering an impressive combination of specifications and features. KTC has actually been the manufacturer behind some of the top displays from the biggest brands for many years, but since 2021, they've been bringing their trend-setting technologies directly to consumers under their own branding. Check the link in the video description and/or pinned comment to get the perfect KTC display for your needs now. So let's start filling in the column from the top, and I'll go with the AMD stuff since I had that on top, and I have RX 9050 is now announced, but there's none on sale in the United States. This wasn't supposed to be a US region card anyway, but thought I'd check. Now, the RX 9060 XT has an 8GB version, which is available for $370. There's one model in stock at that price, and they jump up to $400, then $420, then $450. So this is another case where I think if I do this video again in a few weeks, I'm curious if we still have any available at this price. However, I like to do this based on the price currently available in the United States for the lowest price model, because if somebody's actually shopping for a GPU right now, you could buy the lowest price model. So I know some people suggest doing a median price or a mean price, and there's all sorts of good reasons why that makes sense too, but I like to do the price based on the current price I could buy it at in the United States if I was shopping today. So we're actually at the same price for the 9060 XT 8GB as 2 weeks ago on August 8th, which is $10 over July 3rd. But keep in mind that the MSRP here was $299, and there was a while where you could actually get these below MSRP last year at around $270. So while it hasn't really changed price since August 8th, we have gone $71 over MSRP, and that's a 24% increase over MSRP. So at least things haven't got worse in the last 2 weeks for that, but it's still not great considering where things used to be. Now, the 16GB version of the 9060 XT, the lowest price available is $460, and there's a couple models available at that price, then several models at $470, so it's looking like there's pretty wide availability around this price point. So it is $100 more to get the 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Now, compared to August 8th, that's the same price. Compared to July 3rd, where it was available at $420, that's a $50 increase, or 12%. And compared to MSRP, this is a $121 over the $349 MSRP for this card, and that's a 35% increase over MSRP. So we're still looking pretty bad compared to MSRP, but at least since 2 weeks ago, we haven't seen a further increase. And, things could be better, but they could also be worse, considering what we saw happen to the 5070. But let's keep going with AMD's lineup. The RX 9070 looks like, if I type in 9070 here, keep in mind that there's now a GRE version, which is less performant and has only 12 gigabytes of VRAM. So that's the one that we're going to see first. The 9070 GRE launched fairly recently compared to the rest of the lineup at a $549 MSRP, but they're actually available below MSRP right now at $530. The MSRP looked bad at the time. I did mention in the reviews that while I was heavily critical of the MSRP, it made me suspicious that AMD knew that prices on everything else was about to skyrocket, and they were pricing it based on what the market was going to be in the near future, and that it was a bad sign of things to come. Looks like I was right on that. Now, anyway, that means that the 9070 GRE is currently the same price it was available for on August 8th and July 3rd, which is $20 below MSRP. It hasn't changed at all in the last few weeks or a month. It's actually $20 or $19 below its MSRP, and it is reaching 97% of its MSRP. So its original MSRP was disgusting compared to everything else at the time, but it's, I think, at least held that price, and as everything else becomes more expensive, I might need to re-review the GRE, at least based on if you had to buy a GPU in the current market, because at least it's holding its price. Now, the 9070 non-GRE, I have to kind of just scroll down here until we see a 9070 without the GRE on it. Looks like we're seeing $630 for a 9070 non-GRE and non-XT. So if I type that in here, so $630, we're actually seeing that compared to August 8th, I now have one available $20 less. So it's gone down $20 since August 8th. Now, compared to July 3rd, where I could get one at $580, it's increased price by $50, which is a 9% increase. But again, since the 2 weeks ago video, it's actually $20 less, or 97% of the price. Now, compared to MSRP, though, it's still not looking great. It's $81 over MSRP, which is a 15% increase over its MSRP. Now, how about the top of AMD's current gaming lineup with the 9070 XT version? So if we type that in, 9070 XT, there's a model available at $720. And then there's a few available two at $730. Then there's a $740, then $750 model. So there does seem to be wide availability around this slightly over $700 price point. So I wouldn't expect these to all dry up anytime immediately soon. And $720. Let's see how that plays into our chart. So 2 weeks ago, I could find one at $710. So we are $10 over where we were 2 weeks ago, and July 3rd, I could find them for $690. So we're $30 over that. However, remember the MSRP was $599. Now, they were famously hard to get at that price, and it was accused of being a fake MSRP, only available in limited quantities based on AMD rebates. But actually, a while after launch, there was a time period where you could get them for around $600, sometimes a little bit more. So it wasn't always completely fake. They were available for a little while around that price point. So we're at $720 right now. So that's $30 over where we were on July 3rd, a 4% increase compared to 2 weeks ago. It's a $10 increase or a 1% increase. Compared to MSRP, though, it is $121 over MSRP and 20% increase over its MSRP. So that's AMD's current lineup. Compared to MSRP, we've seen a 24% increase, a 35% increase, 15% increase, and 20% increase on the models that were available when the 9000 series launched, and the newcomer, the 9070 GRE, is effectively holding its launch price slightly below, but it launched at a price that, or again, the GRE version launched with the same MSRP as the 9070, which has a lot more performance and VRAM. So you could already tell AMD was anticipating what has happened in the last couple of months since they launched that. Let's get into NVIDIA's lineup now, the RTX 5050. So the 5050, I have one model available at $300 in the United States, and then there's one at $320, then $325, then $350. So maybe they'll be able to hold this $300 price point. Now, compared to MSRP, that's already pretty bad, but let's type it in here and evaluate a bit. So the RTX 5050 had a $249 MSRP. On July 3rd, I can find one for $290. 2 weeks ago, I could find it for $300, and I can still find it for $300. So it's $10 or 3% over the price on July 3rd. It's the same price it was on 2 weeks ago on August 8th, and it's $51 over MSRP, which is still 20% over MSRP. And remember, the RTX 5050 didn't review well at its MSRP of $250 already, and we're now 20% above that. So not great when we compare it to MSRP, but how about the RTX 5050? Where are we at there? Sorry, 5060. So RTX 5060. Oh my goodness. Lowest price available in the United States appears to be $389. But check this out. There's only a single model available at $389. The next model is available at $450. And then there's a 454, 455, 460. So it certainly looks like the actual price we'll be seeing these at is about 450. But I'm guessing this $389 one is probably holding on to some models still in stock at the price before things jumped. And once these sell out, I have a feeling that 450 certainly looks like it's going to be the more typical price point. But like I said, my methodology here is if I was buying a GPU today and I wanted to buy a 5060, I can buy one for $389. So that is the price I'm going to use in my chart. Now, even at that price, notice that it is already a significant increase over where it was just 2 weeks ago. And that was already an increase over where it was on July 3rd, and that was already significantly above the MSRP. So the RTX 5060 launched at $299 MSRP, and already was criticized for that being pretty expensive for an 8GB card. Of course, RAM and VRAM wasn't as expensive then as it is now. So we're now up to $389. So compared to July 3rd, we are $49 increase, which is 14%. Compared to 2 weeks ago, it's $29 increase, which is 8%. But compared to MSRP, we're $90 over MSRP, which is a 30% increase above MSRP. That is pretty brutal. Now, what about the 5060 Ti? Now, remember, there are two versions. There's an 8GB version and a 16GB version. The 8GB version had a $379 MSRP, and the 16GB version had a $429 MSRP. And at those prices, most reviews, myself included, said that the 8GB version was a really stupid buy. You should spend the extra money to double the VRAM and get a lot more longevity out of the card. But let's take a look at what's happened to pricing now. So the RTX 5060 Ti, the 8GB version, seems like the lowest price available in the United States is currently $460. Then it goes up to $480, $500, $502, $504, $510. So there's a lot around this $500 price point, but I could currently buy one at $460. Which doesn't sound great, but compared to everything else, oh my goodness. Okay, so $460. So notice that 2 weeks ago, I could buy one for $400. And on July 3rd, I could buy one for $370, which was actually below the MSRP. So, yeah, that's where we're at with this. So compared to July 3rd, the 5060 Ti 8GB version has increased in price by $90, which is a 24% increase. And compared to just 2 weeks ago, it's increased by $60, which is a 15% increase. And compared to MSRP, it is $81 over MSRP. And that is a 21% increase over MSRP. And there was, like I said, a while where you could get these below MSRP because they reviewed really poorly at $380, especially when AMD's 9060 XT 16GB version could be found for around $360. It really forced down the 8GB competition from Nvidia. So, we're looking at this compared to MSRP, but there was a long time where you could get them significantly below MSRP, but that has now changed dramatically. All right, let's look at these 16GB versions. Now, these 16GB cards are certainly being hit the hardest by the VRAM increases to the point where it's questionable whether they're really being produced in any quantity. So the 5060 Ti 16GB is currently available at the lowest price in the United States at $729. $729. I don't know what to do other than laugh. I mean, that's not funny for anybody who wants to buy a 5060 Ti 16GB. But sometimes, like, your only reaction to this kind of a situation can be to just laugh. So the 5060 Ti 16GB launched at a $429 MSRP. It's now $729. 2 weeks ago, I could find it for $600, and on July 3rd, I could find one for $556, which was already so expensive it was kind of pointless to buy. So compared to July 3rd, it is $173 more expensive, or a 31% increase. Compared to just 2 weeks ago, it's gone up $129, which is a 22% increase. And compared to MSRP, we are now $300 over MSRP, which is a 70% increase compared to MSRP. That is absolutely crazy. So 5060 Ti 16GB basically doesn't exist for anybody looking at it. And we started the video with the 5070 since that's what prompted me to do this video, because my plan was to wait until September. But we're only 2 weeks out from my last video, and the prices just went absolutely insane again. So the 5070, remember, is now $800, which is $200 over the July 3rd pricing, or a 33% increase. $170 over the August 8th pricing 2 weeks ago, which is a 27% increase. $251 over MSRP, which is a 46% increase. That is just insane. And what I said is the most popular 50 series GPU on the Steam hardware survey. So I I'm not sure how many more they'll be selling now that they're $800. So how about the 5070 Ti? If you want NVIDIA's current lineup with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and the 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte doesn't make any sense, what about the 5070 Ti version? So 5070 Ti. First of all, again, this 9070 GRE is just showing up for some reason when I search for 5070s on PC Part Picker. So ignore that. The lowest priced 5070 Ti in the United States right now is $1,050. $1,050. Let's type that in. $1,050. Okay. So how does that compare? MSRP is $749. On July 3rd, it was already well above MSRP, but I could find one model in stock at $860, although it did sell out quickly, and they were more typically priced at around $950. By August 8th, just 2 weeks ago, the lowest price was $1,000, and we've already gone up another $50 to $1,050. So compared to July 3rd, we're $190 more expensive, or a 22% increase. Compared to just 2 weeks ago, we've gone up another $50, which is a 5% increase versus that price, and compared to MSRP, we are now $301 over MSRP, which is a 40% increase over MSRP. How about the 5080? Okay, all right. The 5080 is now, for the lowest price model that's actually showing is in stock, $1,455. $1,455. Okay, let's just type it in. I don't even know what to say. $1,455. 2 weeks ago, I could find one for $1,290. On July 3rd, I could find one for $1,260. And remember, the MSRP is $999. So the RTX 5080 is now $195 over the price I could find on July 3rd, which is a 15% increase. It's now $165 more than it was just 2 weeks ago, which is a 13% increase. And compared to MSRP, it is $456 over MSRP, which is a 46% increase over MSRP. And if you thought any of that was bad, let's take a look at the 32 gigabyte RTX 5090. Okay, now one thing I'll mention is that this one that being listed at $4,100 seemed so incorrect compared to the next one in stock being $4,800. I was curious, so I followed the link. And note that there's no click to buy this on when you actually follow the link that PC Part Picker is listing. So this is not actually available at that price point. So the lowest model that is actually in stock to purchase today is $4,795. Okay, $4,795. So where does that put us? Well, remember the MSRP for the 5090 was $2,000. Well, $1,999. Save that $1, right? Okay, now, on July 3rd, I could find one for $4,000. On 2 weeks ago, there was one listed at $4,100. Now, I'm actually a little suspicious now that maybe I should have tracked those a little closer to double check we weren't finding that same issue. So I am going to mention that there's a potential issue with this data set where I'm wondering if those ones could have been suffering from the same issue I just noticed this month. It's a little too late now to go back and double check. Either way, we can at least compare to MSRP, note that the price is insane. And for the future, I will try to keep tracking this available pricing. Now, so it's potentially $800 more expensive than it was on July 3rd, which would be a 20% increase, or $700 more than it was 2 weeks ago, which would be a 17% increase. And even if those could potentially be errors in the data set, if this same model could have been having that same issue, I'm not 100% sure. Even if that is an error in the data set, all you need to do is compare it to the MSRP to get a picture of what's happening here. We are now $2,796 over MSRP. which is 140% increase over MSRP, or in other words, 2.4 times the price, or it is now 240% of the original MSRP pricing. So that is by far the worst value that we're seeing compared to MSRP on any model available here. So to summarize, I hope you already bought a GPU if you wanted one this generation, because things are getting really, really bad. There's also absolutely no sign of things potentially getting any better unless we suddenly have the data center AI stuff collapse, which people have been saying is just around the corner any time now, but it doesn't seem to happen. So it could, but nobody can. If you could actually predict when that happens, you could make a lot more money, in the stock market based on that than you're going to save on trying to predict the GPU pricing market. So, just saying, if anybody's trying to tell you they know exactly when things will get better, they don't actually know. Okay. Anyway, so where are we at? If we throw out the GRE, which was launched into this market, and look at the rest of them compared to their MSRP pricing when they actually launched the 9000 series and the 50 series cards, we can see that everything is significantly more expensive than it was now. However, it is looking like overall, Nvidia prices seem to have increased significantly more than AMD's pricing compared to MSRP. So it's looking like the value proposition of AMD versus Nvidia is getting a little bit better as everybody's prices get worse. It is looking like, compared to MSRP, Nvidia is overall doing worse than Nvidia is on average. But it's looking like, the least, the smallest bump over MSRP is the 9070, not GRE, not XT version, at 15% over MSRP, $81 over MSRP. Currently could find one in the United States for $630. I did confirm that actually is available at that price. So I would say that right now, the 9070 is one of the only cards I could maybe recommend buying if you were like, okay, I need a GPU and I don't know if things get any worse. I don't know if I could buy one, and we don't know when things will get better. Guys, I hope they get better soon, and I'm not telling you to run out and buy a GPU if you don't need one. But if I had to try to recommend something, if you have to buy a GPU right now, like your old one broke, or you don't even have a gaming PC, you just unfortunately chose this moment to try to get into PC gaming. Yeah, that 9070 at 630 is certainly standing out as one of the least bad options currently available. Gets you that 16 gigabytes of VRAM as well. The 9070 XT version, also not awful, and is, if you have the additional money, maybe worth spending it. It's not that much faster than the baseline 9070, though. Especially when we look at the NVIDIA competition at that kind of $600 to $700 price range. You have the, again, looking at current pricing here, sorry. The $630 to $720 price range. NVIDIA's options are the 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte, which is going to get absolutely crushed by a 9070 XT. I almost want to do a head-to-head video just to laugh at it. And then you've got the 5070 coming in at $800, so significantly more expensive than the 9070 XT. And just to be clear, like the 9070 XT versus the 5070 not only has 16 gigabytes of VRAM versus 12, but it's also somewhere around 25% faster. It depends on the exact games that you test. And I think I saw a thumbnail for Hardware Unboxed today actually just running a 9070 XT versus 5070 head-to-head. Probably, I'm guessing, I haven't watched the video, but I'm guessing they noticed that these are priced similarly now as well. So yeah, you're getting significantly more performance there. The baseline 9070 is at least 10% faster than a 5070. And in the current pricing, the baseline 9070 is $630 versus $800 for a 5070. So you're getting a faster card with more VRAM for $170 less. So the 9070 and 9070 XT are standout cards to me right now in the current market. as smaller bumps over MSRP compared to everything else, which has increased their value versus everything else. And they still offer the 16 gigabytes of VRAM in a market where the cards with 16 gigabytes of VRAM are seeing some of the largest increases. AMD's 9060 XT 16 gigabyte version is 35% over MSRP. The 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte is 70% over MSRP. The 5070 Ti, which has 16 gigabytes, is 40% over MSRP. The 5080, which has 16 gigabytes, is 46% over MSRP. And then the 5090, which has 32 gigabytes, is now 140% over MSRP. So, for a card with more than 8 gigabytes of VRAM, those are really standing out. Now, the GRE at 530, it's got 12 gigabytes of VRAM and it's significantly slower than the 9070. So I'd kind of recommend, if you could possibly stomach that extra $100 right now, the 9070 does seem better value than the GRE as well. Okay, so that's where we're at in this market. For stuff less than that, I mean, I don't know if you can find a deal in the used market or something like that, but this is where we're at. Now, again, I apologize that, my Google Sheets skills is not ideal, so I'm doing the best I can with our setup here. Hopefully the formatting is at least a little better than last 2 weeks ago where it looked like this, which was a bit even more of a mess. So anyway, hopefully this was at least a little bit nicer. That's what I've got for you guys today. Like I said, monitor pricing, you could check out the deal there if you're looking for an upgrade that's not GPUs that went insane. But we've even seen rumors that monitor pricing may be increasing soon as well. So if you're looking for a new monitor, maybe don't wait too long on that one either. But yeah. All right, hope you guys found the video useful and or interesting and you still managed to have an excellent day.